Last year's New Balance Rebel was my favorite daily trainer of 2024. And this year they've made a big change, increasing the stack height by 15%. But is that too much for this Rebel to handle? It's time to lace up the Rebel version 5 and take it for a ride. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys all about the New Balance Rebel version 5. But before I give my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I bought with my wife's money, so no one had to send it to me. No one is paying me to put their brand in this video, and no one had a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys had a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the New Balance Rebel version 5, and let's start with the specs. This is a 35mm stack height shoe now. Last year it was 30mm of stack height in the heel, and it keeps that 6mm drop, meaning we have 29mm of stack height in the forefoot in the Rebel. And there's only one element in this midsole, and that's fuel cell. Now, fuel cell can mean a lot of things from New Balance. As we'll see later in the video, it gets put onto a lot of different shoes in the New Balance lineup. And it doesn't mean a specific kind of chemical compound. And in this shoe, in the Rebel version 5, fuel cell is a PIBA and EVA blend. EVA is the compound that's been around in running shoes for decades now. It's kind of a more standard type of foam, and PIBA is a type of foam that's a little bit more advanced technology-wise, and it typically is found in a lot of race product, although now they're finding ways, like by making EVA PIBA blends, to introduce it into stuff that you might wear more on an everyday basis. Now, protecting all this is a lot of rubber. There's a lot more rubber covering the front of the shoe that we had compared to last year. And the overall footprint of the shoe stays pretty similar. There are certain spots where I feel like the Rebel version 5 is a little bit wider. And then there's certain spots where I feel like last year's Rebel 4 was a little bit wider, namely kind of like this part off the end of that pinky toe is a little bit wider. It seems to have been slimmed down just a little bit in the footprint, but otherwise it's still a very wide platform of shoe, so there's plenty of shoe for you to land on, which also will help keep the shoe from feeling too unstable, even if you're landing just a little bit off of center. Then there are also two little skids of rubber in the back, a rounded kind of hollow outline of a rubber pad on the medial side of that heel, and then on the outside, which is generally a very high wear area for most people, including myself, it's filled in. You get a full rubber pad back here, but they're still trying to keep it nice and lightweight and keep that rubber coverage to a minimum while also still providing plenty of protection and grip. Moving to the upper, we have a pretty similar material this year as we saw last year, and technically it is a little bit of a different last. In other words, like the shape of the foot that they use to make this upper is a little bit different. I still went with my usual running shoe size for this one, just like I did last year, and that's what I'm going to recommend for most people this year to do as well. Last year, I felt like the shoe was a little bit on the big side. There was a lot of volume in the shoe, and you can kind of see as I've used this older shoe, there's some puckering that's happening in the material in the upper that kind of indicates where there was like a little bit too much material, at least for my foot. There's a little bit less of that happening. Granted, this is a little bit newer of a shoe, but it's happening less in the Rebel version 5. I think that they have trimmed down the overall height of the toe box just a little bit to make it fit a little bit better, and I feel like maybe it is now just a little bit on the sides, which I feel like is a change that makes sense. Last year's upper was a little bit too big. I felt like my foot slid around just a little bit because there was just so much excess room in it. But when I think about it compared to other shoes in this class of shoes of daily trainers, it's still on the roomier side of shoes. And that's aided by the fact that this material is very breathable and very lightweight and also very thin. They have made a slight change to the tongue. They made it just a little bit longer. Last year's tongue had a notch in the front and it was a little bit shorter, and I think some people thought it might have been too short. They've increased the length just a little bit to the point where I think it's just right. It's still a gusseted tongue, so it's going to stay in place. They've added a little bit more padding in here, and they've got a little mini Noki pillow at the back for you to feel a little bit more luxurious as you're putting the shoe on. It's a little bit of a finger grip at the back of the shoe instead of, say, like a pull tab, but they are still keeping it relatively minimal in terms of the padding, even though there is a bit more than last year. Now, despite all the changes and the addition of more material in the tongue, a lot more foam, and a little bit more padding in the back of the heel, they've still managed to keep the shoe at a relatively light weight. New Balance is reporting a weight for this shoe using a US men's size 9.5, but I'm a reference size, US men's size 9, and my shoe came in at a measured weight of 7.8 ounces or 222 grams. Now that we talked about what this shoe was like on paper, let's talk about what this shoe was like on the road. I had a lot of really fond memories of the Rebel version 4. I absolutely love that shoe, and my experience in the Rebel version 5 matches up very well with my memories of my experiences in the Rebel version 4. Now, I always say that nostalgia is the softest midsole, and to me, when I first put on the Rebel version 5, it kind of felt like almost the exact same shoe. There was so much softness on impact whenever that foot hits the ground, but also there's a responsiveness to this foam too. It reacts to the forces that you're pushing into it, and so you're not getting stuck or mired in your downstep. It's pushing back against you in a really pleasant way that facilitates a very peppy and fun turnover. It's a very lively shoe. It feels like a very nimble shoe, even though it is a very tall shoe. And those are a lot of the same phrases that I would use to describe my experiences in the Rebel version 4. But I recently also put on the Rebel version 4 just to kind of do a quick check back and to see how much my experience lines up with my nostalgia tinted memories of the Rebel version 4. And having done that, I can really feel the differences. I can feel that difference in stack height, which is a substantial addition. 5 millimeters more stack height in both the heel and in the forefoot of the shoe do make a really big difference. And I feel like the thing that it really does for me is that it kind of increases the comfort level of the shoe, and it increases my confidence in this shoe. Now, I took this shoe right out of the box on a 15-mile long run, and I felt like I didn't have anything to worry about in terms of taking a Rebel out for a long run. It's been a daily trainer for a few years now that you can take for your everyday, you could take for some workouts, and you could also take for some longer runs as well. And this one rose to the occasion really nicely. But as I posted some footage from that on Instagram, a lot of you guys were like, I can't imagine taking a Rebel for a long run right out of the box, or I can't imagine taking a Rebel for a long run, period. And I'll say that if you guys have that kind of concern, I'd say check out the new Rebel version 5. It's got 5 millimeters more stack height in the heel, and that's going to be noticeable, especially for a shoe that you might want to take for a long run. But I would also say, though, that I took the Rebel 4 for long runs, and I even took the Rebel 3 for long runs, and I felt like that was one of the more lowest slung of all the Rebels that they'd ever made, and that did surprisingly well for me on a 20-mile long run. And so I feel like the Rebel has always kind of, at least for the last few years, has had that ability to be a daily trainer plus a long run shoe, and I feel like the Rebel version 5 kind of is leaning even more so into that, and hopefully more of you will be able to look at it as a shoe that has the versatility for something that could go fast for a fartlek workout or a threshold workout, but also go long for a long run, even for a long run that has some faster marathon effort miles in there like mine did. And the overall message that I want to convey in my review of the Rebel version 5 is that although there's been a lot of little tweaks, I feel like the essence of that Rebel is still there. If you love the Rebel version 4, you're going to love Rebel version 5. If you thought the Rebel version 4 was good, but you wished it had a little bit more stack height to it, just a little bit more cushion to it, you're absolutely going to love the Rebel version 5. There's still so much comfort in this shoe, but there's still also so much pace versatility in this shoe. It was excellent last time, and I'm happy to say that it's still excellent this time. Now, before we wrap up this video, let's take a moment to zoom out and see where the Rebel version 5 fits within the broader New Balance lineup. Now, within the New Balance lineup, there's kind of two main categories of shoes. There's fuel cell shoes, which we've been talking about fuel cell foam in the Rebel version 5. And then there's Fresh Foam X shoes. And they're kind of like two parallel lines that use different kinds of foam to deliver different kinds of experiences. Although, as we'll see soon, a lot of the use cases for the shoes may cross over. They're just trying to do the same thing, but maybe doing it in a slightly different way to appeal to different runners. First, let's talk about the fuel cell shoes, and the daily trainer in the fuel cell side from New Balance is that Rebel version 5 that we've been talking about, that can do a lot of everything and can be a shoe that you can reach for most of the days of the week for most of your runs. But if you want a little bit more cushion than what the Rebel version 5 has, a shoe that is an option from New Balance is the SC Trainer. Now this is a much taller shoe, more foam, more stack height, and a little bit more comfort in mind when you are running in it. But it also has a carbon fiber plate. So while some people are using this as a daily trainer, some people are using it as a max cushion or recovery run shoe, some people are using it as their marathon shoe as well. And so this is another option from the New Balance lineup. And then from the racing side, that's where the SC Elite comes into play. This is SC Elite version 5. I haven't done my formal review of this shoe yet, but I have had a couple of runs in it, and this is a very nice update to their racing shoe. Also uses fuel cell, but the fuel cell here is all PIBA midsole foam, and it also has a carbon fiber plate and much more stripped down upper. It's a little bit lighter, a lot less padding because you're looking for raw performance rather than some more of those comfort oriented features you might have in the Rebel. Now, in a lot of lineups, there's a shoe that's in between the daily trainer and the racing shoe that's called like the tempo shoe or the workout shoe. And I think right now from New Balance, you could say that it would be the SC Pacer. This is SC Pacer version 2. It has less stack height than the SC Elite does, and it does have a carbon fiber plate in it though. So it's a little bit lower to the ground. So you might not want to take it for a full marathon distance run, but it could be a really fun shoe to take for workouts. Now, the kind of wrinkle here with New Balance is that the SC Pacer has been redesigned for this year to be a marathon shoe. So technically, these shoes are alternatives. So if you want something that's a little bit more like low to the ground, a little bit more responsive, give you a little bit more road feel, you would go the SC Pacer version 2. But if you want something that's a little bit taller and a little bit more comfort and cushion to it, something that feels a little bit more modern, how race shoes have been going in the last handful of years, then you would go with the SC Elite version 5. I don't particularly enjoy the SC Pacer version 2 as a marathon shoe, so I might really slot it in as kind of that workout shoe or that like 5K, 10K, up to half marathon racing kind of shoe, although it is priced a little bit on the high side to use as a shoe kind of just for workouts. But kind of this is how I would kind of sort out, in my mind, a lot of the fuel cell shoes in the lineup. But these aren't the only shoes that New Balance has to offer. They also have those Fresh Foam X shoes that I was talking about. So the daily trainer on the Fresh Foam X side is the 880, but this kind of lines up against the Rebel version 5. It's a shoe that you use for most of your workouts for most of your days. If you kind of like more, I guess, old school types of shoes and you don't want shoes that are so squishy, then I feel like the 880 is something that you should be looking towards. Or if you want a little bit more stability, but not quite a stability shoe, New Balance does make those, but like a neutral shoe that is a little bit more stable would be the 880. And then if you want a little bit more cushion than what the 880 has, then New Balance does offer the 1080. Now, for a while, the 1080 was kind of the max cushion shoe in the lineup. And so that's kind of how I would look at it frequently. It has more stack height to it. It has a lot more comfort. But these days, there's another shoe that New Balance also makes that's called the More. It has even more stack height, even more fuel cell foam to it. And that would be really considered the max cushion shoe in the lineup. So the 1080 is kind of like a premium daily trainer at this point is kind of how I'd look at it, like a grand touring version of a car or a sedan, if you want to think of it that way. So it's kind of like a daily trainer, and I would use it mostly like a daily trainer, but it has a little bit more cushion in it, maybe not as much as the More, which is the max cushion kind of king in the New Balance lineup. And if you're looking for a shoe where you're going to be on your feet all day, in all of the New Balance lineup, I feel like the More is a really great one, although the 1080 also is really good. And then New Balance also has another shoe that's kind of an outlier. They came out with it last year. Who knows if it'll be updated this year. It's the Ballos. And I feel like this was kind of the alternative on the Fresh Foam X side to the SC Trainer. It could be a max cushion shoe, but it's got a little bit of peppiness to it, so it could be maybe some people's marathon shoes or workout shoes. Now, in terms of stack height, it's somewhere in between the 880 and the 1080, but in terms of feel that I get from it, it's kind of like something in between the 1080 and the More, in that it feels like there's a lot of cushion in there, but it's still got some peppiness in there too. And And so I would consider that as kind of like a long run shoe. And then there isn't a racing shoe on the Fresh Foam X side. For racing, you're going to always be kicking up to the S Elite version 5. So this is the New Balance lineup. The Fresh Foam X shoes are generally kind of daily trainers. They're built a little bit more for durability. They have more of an old school feel to them in one way. And kind of the more modern feeling shoes are the fuel cell shoes. Now, in terms of how do you sort through all these? Like, I have a preference where I love shoes like the Rebel version 5. And so if I were to narrow this down, there's a lot of shoes here on this table that I do really enjoy. But I think a lot of them that I would get rid of would be most of the Fresh Foam X shoes. And I would also get rid of a lot of the fuel cell shoes as well. I would keep the SC Elite and the Rebel version 5. And I think this could be a really good 1-2 punch for a rotation. But if I did have to pick a third shoe in the lineup, I'd probably bring back in that 1080 as kind of that max cushion, more of a recovery run, very chill type of run kind of option. So I feel like for me, mixing and matching from fuel cell and Fresh Foam X from New Balance, this is the ideal lineup that I would like. Now let's wrap up the video by going over the buying guide, and we'll also discuss some alternatives. New Balance didn't rest on its laurels, and it made some key changes to improve upon an already top tier shoe in the Rebel version 5. It's excellent for daily training, for recovery runs, for speed work, and also some long runs. And it comes at a retail price of $140, and while that is a lot of money, I do feel like that is a very competitive market rate for what you're getting in this shoe. Now, I don't think that everyone is going to love the changes though. If you are more of a fan of the Rebel 3 or Rebel 2, or even the Rebel version 1, I'd say for you runners, you should really look to pick up some existing inventory of the Rebel version 4 while you still can. If you can find it in your size, you'd be rewarded with a really nice discount because this shoe can be found online for about $100 now. But let's also take a look at some of the alternatives that are out there on the market to see what the rest of the market has to offer. Now, when it comes to thinking about alternatives to the Rebel version 5, I can basically rattle off all of my favorite daily trainers that are available on the market right now, and there are a lot. It's a really great time to be a runner. But I think to narrow it down, what I'm going to do is provide those that I think are excellent daily trainers, but also provide a similar type of experience that the Rebel version 5 does. And so I think the shoe that is the closest in terms of providing a similar level of squishiness and comfort, but peppiness, the first one is going to be from ASICS, and this is the Novablast 5. Now, this is kind of last year's version of this shoe. We haven't seen the update to this shoe for 2025 quite yet, but it's still a shoe that I think is worth discussing when we're talking about the Rebel versus the Novablast. Both of these shoes are trying to achieve, I think right now, very similar things. A lot of great cushion, but also a lot of peppiness. A lot of great comfort, but also speed that's there when you want it. They're both very versatile shoes that are very fun to run in. I think some key differences are there's a lot more puffiness in the heel of the Novablast 5. So if you're the type that has some issues with fit and lockdown in the heel, the Novablast 5 is probably where I point you more towards. And I do feel like if this is a shoe that you're gonna double for some casual or lifestyle use as well, I'd lean towards the Novablast 5. But from a pure performance perspective, I prefer the more minimal heel in the Rebel version 5. There isn't as much padding back here, and I also just prefer the dynamics of the fuel cell that's in the Rebel version 5, that PIBA EVA mix. It's just a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more fun for me, and so I think the Rebel version 5 is going to take the top spot again in terms of the Novablast versus Rebel, at least in terms of what ASICS has released so far at this point in the year, July of 2025. If you're interested in the Novablast 5, that shoe retails at a price of $150. Now, the next shoe that I want to talk about that I think compares to the Rebel version 5 is a shoe that I normally wouldn't put in the same conversation with the Rebel or the Novablast. It's a shoe that's been a real big surprise for me for this year, and that's from Brooks. It's the Hyperion 3. Now, this shoe has undergone a significant change from the original Hyperion Tempo to the Hyperion 1 and Hyperion 2. This year, they've changed the amount of foam that's in the shoe, and while it's still nominally the same DNA Flash version 2 that the Hyperion had last year, it's a completely different type of experience in my mind, and this year the Hyperion 3 is a really lovely, very versatile, and very fun daily trainer. It's got a lot of comfy cushion in the back of the heel cup as well, and a super stretchy, fun knit type of upper that I'm really enjoying. I also really do enjoy the aesthetics of the shoe, which is normally not something that we say for Brooks shoes, but it's definitely something that I could say easily here. I'd say that the squishy comfort of the fuel cell in the Rebel version 5 is more fun for me, and it does feel like there's a little bit more foam in that forefoot, but I do feel like the Hyperion 3 still kind of retains a little bit of that tempo shoe heritage that it kind of always used to have. And so I'd say if I had to pick a daily trainer that I was going to use for a workout, I might lean towards the Hyperion 3. So depending on what you need that daily trainer to be, that can help you choose between one or the other. They're both at the same price though, as the Hyperion 3 comes in at $140. So those are my thoughts on the Rebel version 5, an excellent shoe that stayed excellent and even got a little bit better. If you have any questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Running Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?